Hi everyone, it's Katie, and today I am doing a video request. I had a question from Ink and Flame not too long ago about secondhand decks and residual energy or possible residual energy, and if cleansing is necessary when we get a secondhand deck. So of course I'm going to talk a little bit about my own perspective on this topic, but I think it's important to note that this entirely depends on your belief system. Whether or not you believe that your deck needs to be cleansed of negative energy or of old energy, of somebody else's energy, will very much come down to whether or not you believe in energy, and also what that means. And as with most things, I'm of the belief that you need to do what works for you, because whether or not any of this stuff is true, your belief will affect how you work with that deck. So if you believe that having somebody else's energy attached to that deck affects your readings, then that's going to affect your readings. So you need to do whatever works for you in order to, work with that deck in an effective way. And if cleansing is part of that process for you, then that's perfect, that works for you. I have a bit of a funny kind of opinion when it comes to this, because I don't really hold true and steady in one camp, one or the other. As most of you will know, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to all of this stuff. So I don't, really truly feel that, there's some kind of energy attached to these decks that I have to clear before I can read with them. And I remember rather early on in my path, I watched a video, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but I have a feeling it was Sammy Valens, who was talking about crystals and the fact that she doesn't feel the need to cleanse hers, or at least she didn't at this, a few years ago. I don't know whether her perspective has changed, but she didn't feel the need to cleanse them. And in part, this is how I remember what I heard her say. She said something along the lines of the fact that she kind of almost was against the idea of cleansing, because she felt that it came from this idea, this belief that us humans somehow have to fix the things that are around us, and she was saying that crystals are natural living beings, and they can take care of themselves. It's not up to us to make them better. And she was just basically talking about our human need to fix or control things. And I thought that was a very interesting concept, because she raised the issue of cleansing and fixing things is a very human-centric practice, that we believe that until we do something to fix something, make it better, then it isn't good enough. There's something wrong with it. So that was kind of one of the first things that I heard against cleansing. In the spiritual community, it's pretty much everything that I've heard is pretty pro cleansing. So that was the first thing, however many years ago, that I heard in favor of not cleansing. So that definitely stuck with me. Additionally, I often feel like decks are just like people in some ways, or at least that's how I choose to, view them, as I spoke about in my personifying tarot video. And when I think about, the shitty things that have happened to me, I wouldn't want them to be erased. I feel like in so many ways they've made me the person that I am, and they've made me wiser and better. And so I kind of feel similarly a lot of the time with decks, and I kind of assume that whatever past experiences they've had, whether they were good or bad, have been there. They add to the value of the deck. They add to its ability to provide, thorough, thoughtful, insightful readings. That is to say that if I was, kind of assuming the belief that, these decks are affected by energy, then I would kind of lean more to the side of that energy, good or bad, when integrated into the deck, can only add to it, not take from it. Having said that, and I think I've used this analogy before, where I've likened this kind of energy that other people would talk about, I kind of see it more as cache in a computer. So cache, very briefly, is kind of like a memory store in a computer, but it's only for kind of short-term recall. And when you turn your computer off, the cache gets wiped, but the hard drive doesn't. And if your cache is too full, if you've left your computer on for weeks on end or whatever, it does start to slow your computer down, and it increases the chance for errors. And so to fix that, you just restart the computer. You don't get rid of everything on the hard drive. I mean, sometimes you have to do that, but not very often. You just kind of reboot it to give it a fresh start. So you're clearing out those, strings of information that aren't helpful long-term, aren't useful long-term. And so I kind of sometimes approach my decks in a similar way. So I don't really feel the need to cleanse my decks just because they've come from somebody else. I just sometimes notice that maybe I'm not connecting with the deck as well, or my messages start to feel a bit confused or sluggish. Then that's kind of when I think of my, experience of my computer when I've left it on too long and it just feels a bit sluggish and things aren't quite working how I want them to. I reset it. And so that's what I do with my decks. I just put them back in order. So basically, the experiences of the deck, the lessons that it's learnt and the readings that it's participated in and everything that kind of adds to its wisdom overall, that is the hard drive, and I don't clear that. I just put it back in order to give it a bit of a fresh start, a reset. And I find I often want to do this when my deck has been on for too long. You know, if I've been using the same deck constantly for months on end, it just kind of feels like it's getting a bit tired. So sometimes just kind of resetting it, putting it back in order, I don't know, just kind of rejigs the energy. So that's often what I will do when I get a new deck, especially one that's traded, because often they're not in order. And so I don't feel the need, I don't think I ever have felt the need to literally cleanse a deck of some kind of tainted energy or bad energy. Rather, I just put it back in order to kind of be like, I don't know, like a landmark, like from here on out, we're working together. It just kind of has that bit of a reset without, you know, clearing everything. Having said all of that, there has been one occasion in which I have felt 100% called, like I felt a need for cleansing. And that wasn't with a deck, it was with this rose quartz crystal. Now, I took this crystal in with me to my first hospital admission, my psychiatric hospital admission in 2013. And I would basically use it as kind of like a mindful self-care tool. And what I would do multiple times a day during the 7 or 8 weeks that I was in for my first admission was I would hold this crystal and I would imagine all of that really yucky, depressive energy flow out through my right arm into the crystal. And the crystal would then transmute that energy into love and light. And then I would kind of draw it back up through my left arm. So I was kind of, pushing through the negative energy, and it was coming back through the quartz crystal as something better for me. And I often found that that just made me feel better. It really did. It just made me feel a little bit lighter, like less heavy. Like depression often makes people feel heavy. And I just kind of felt like my mind cleared a little bit. It just felt nice. And then one day I just kind of left it up on the windowsill. Normally I think I would put it away somewhere, but I left it up on the windowsill. And I went off to, you know, an appointment or two and then came back. And I walked into the room and I just felt horrible. And at first I assumed that it was because, you know, I'd been a bit busy that morning and being so unwell, it just kind of, you know, gotten the better of me. But over the next coming days, it just got worse. And a few days after that, it occurred to me that I hadn't used my rose quartz in a little while. And I kind of looked over at it, and that end of the room just felt heavy and dark, black almost. Like, you're not visually, obviously, but that's when I looked over there, that's just the immediate feeling that I got. And it just occurred to me that perhaps I'd put too much of my shit into the rose quartz and it needed cleansing. And so I did. I cleansed it, and then everything felt fine again. I mean, obviously I was still unwell, but that whole dense energy of the room, it left. And of course, I don't know how real any of this was. That was just my experience. So I think it's interesting that even though I've come to a bit of a different conclusion with my decks, at least for now, I have had a different experience. So I'm open to the fact that maybe a deck will come to me that feels really yucky, or perhaps something that will happen and that deck will feel, I don't want to say tainted, but, you know, weighed down by an energy that shouldn't be there. And I'm the sort of person that I just take everything case by case. I will respond to things as I feel like I need it. So even if intellectually I've kind of come to this computer analogy approach to, you know, the energy of my decks, you know, there have been those experiences where, you know, it kind of contradicts what I intellectually think. And in those cases, I just do what feels right. So I thought this was a really interesting topic. Thank you, Ink and Flame. And I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments below, because I know we all have so many different perspectives on this. And I know a lot of people do feel like it's really important to cleanse their decks, and I can appreciate why. So I'd love to have a chat with you guys in the comments. Let me know, you know, what you do, what you like to do when you get perhaps a secondhand deck, or, you know, what happens when you just kind of start to feel a deck feeling a bit sluggish or weighed down. Is that an experience you've had, and then what do you do? I'd love to have a chat with you guys, and until next time, so much love. Bye.